Hey YouTube, I'm Almost Post 1975. It's been a while since I've done one of my 10, list videos. I'll be honest, I quite like doing them, but I only really do them unless something kind of, tickles my fancy or interests me. And like quite a lot of my videos, this topic came about from a conversation with a buddy at work last night at break time. Now, basically, 10 video gaming firsts. Here are 10 of my video game firsts. These are moments that I experienced something for the first time related to video games. They may or may not all be video game related, software related or hardware related, but they are 10 of my experiences that happened to me for the first time within the realm of video games. I think this could be a good question to ask, simply because dependent on how old you are and where you live, everyone else could have such a differing sort of history of this. Now, first question. First game you played. First game you played. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be, an arcade machine. It could be the first game you had on your computer or on a console or on a neighbor's console. It could be a Pong machine. It could be anything. But what was the first time you played what you would consider to be a video game, or your first video game experience? Excuse me. Now, for me, that would be actually a tabletop game, a game called Astro Wars, made by Grandstand in 1981. It was a shooter, essentially. It was Galaxians, basically. It's quite advanced for the time. I mean, I haven't played one of these in about 5 years, but the last time I did, I was actually quite pleasantly surprised with it. Yeah, I'll show you a picture. But basically, first gaming experience was Astro Wars. It was actually my brother's. He got it for his birthday, and I was so super jealous, because he hardly let us play it for shit. My older brother, this is. But yeah, first gaming experience, first game I ever played was Astro Wars. What was the first game you ever bought? I don't mean a game that you inherited, a friend gave you, a birthday present, a Christmas present. I mean the first game you bought with your hard-earned cash. Now, I can still remember this, and I still have it in a box in the attic. It was a game made by a company called Imagine Plays the Game, which was sort of the sister company of Ocean, who basically, this company, Imagine, was just made to do arcade ports. And it was an arcade port of a game by Konami called Yia Kung Fu. Very primitive fighting game, one-on-one. Shit ton of moves. Quite impressive, I guess, for the time that, the hardware it was running on. I think it cost me $7.95 in the early 80s, which is quite a lot. I mean, we complain about the price of games now, but that was probably quite a lot of money. And I have very fond memories with it. So it came in one of those really cool clams that you used to get on the Spectrum, with a vinyl cover on the outside, ever so slightly bigger than a regular cassette. But yeah, Yia Kung Fu was the first game I bought with my own money. Here's a good one. First game you ever traded. I don't mean that you traded to like a store like Pink Planet or Game or GameStop. I mean the first game you ever traded with a buddy, at school, whether on the school bus or in the playground, but the first game you swapped with a buddy. Now, I remember this because it was a game called Dan Dare, which is based on a then, it's deceased now, a very famous comic called Eagle, and Dan Dare was one of the main strips, like a spaceman from the future. And it was a side-scrolling shooter made by Virgin Games. It was actually quite impressive, but I completed it. And what I wanted was Target Renegade, which was again made by Imagine Play the Game. Now, Target Renegade was a sequel to the arcade game Renegade, but it was interesting in the sense that it wasn't actually an arcade game itself. I think Imagine saw that there was an opening because Double Dragon was massive in the arcades at the time, but there was no port of it yet coming to the home systems. So they kind of used a sequel they made to Renegade to plug this gap, and I had no money at the time, and I had to have it. And as luck would be, this guy I traded with wanted Dan Dare, so I traded. So my first game I ever traded is, got on a trade, sorry, is Target Renegade. One of my favourite Spectrum fighters of all time, by the way. First system you ever owned. Now, by this I mean the system that was in your house. You probably didn't buy it yourself. Your parents got it for you, or a relative, or a friend, or a gift, or whatever. Now, it's no surprise, I've talked about this before, but my first system, I owned, or the system of the house bought by my parents for all three of us, was the ZX Spectrum 48K, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum 48K. Obviously, my dad, I said this before, bought it for us thinking that it would be educational, would teach us programming, but pretty much we just realised you could play games on it, and yeah, thus began my, love of gaming. Pretty much that machine made me a hardcore game, have such fond memories of it, love it. First gaming peripheral that you bought, the first thing you bought that wasn't software, but you bought to improve or expand your experience of gaming. Now for me, that's a no-brainer. I have very fond memories of this. Once again, it was actually for the ZX Spectrum again. It was made by Spectravision. I think it was pretty much the best-selling joystick of the time, and it was the QuickShot 2. I mean, I love the QuickShot 2. The world of difference between playing on keys and jumping to a joystick for the first time was utterly, utterly amazing. Fortunately, I didn't realise when I first bought my QuickShot 2 that I had to buy something called an interface to plug it into the Spectrum, because like many early, consoles, many early computers, it had no joystick port. But yeah, the first gaming peripheral I bought was a QuickShot 2 joystick. The first game magazine you ever read. What was the first game magazine you ever read? Again, I think this could be an interesting question based on, you know, where you live. But for me, and because I had a ZX Spectrum, the first game mag I ever read was Sinclair User. It was published in 1981 and it ran to 1992. I think it made it the longest running Sinclair magazine in the world. But yeah, Sinclair User. Once again, our parents initially got the subscription for us, thinking, you know, because there were programs listed in it that you could program on the computer and, you know, make utilities and games yourself. But we just basically looked at it to work out what games we were going to buy. So first gaming magazine I ever read, Sinclair User. First system you ever bought yourself. You know, the first time you stepped outside of what was in your house or what people had provided for you, and you went and purchased a system that you wanted yourself. Now, mine was the Sega Master System, but obviously I did have a little bit of help in the sense that my parents gave me half the money towards it for Christmas, and I saved up and paid the other half. But it was the first system that, when I saw the adverts for, I've always been a massive Sega fan in the arcades, and I knew this system wouldn't live up to the arcades, but even before my Mega Drive, I can honestly say it was the first system that, from the advertising campaign, the stills I saw of it, you know, people talking about it, I just had to have, you know, a home Sega system. Still very, very fond of it. One of my greatest regrets ever was actually trading it in for a Mega Drive. While it seemed like a good idea at the time, I got so little money for it. As an adult now, I look back and think, I should have just kept it. But my first system I ever bought or purchased myself was the Sega Master System, Model 1. What was your first handheld system? Now, in this, depending on, you know, the age of some gamers, well, that sounds horrible when I say it like that. What was your first handheld? Now, it wasn't actually the Game Boy for me. It was actually the Atari Lynx, the original Model 1 Atari Lynx, which was, you know, pretty impressive. And I did get it round about the time I had my Mega Drive, I think. It's been a while. And yeah, very, very impressive. Came with California Games, because it was absolutely fantastic. I wasn't interested in the Game Boy. Even then, I guess I was kind of a little bit of a gaming snob. You know, I wanted the Japanese Mega Drive before it came out, and I didn't want a black and white handheld. So I got this, and yeah, very, very impressive. But I think I only had it for like 3 weeks before I sold it, quite simply because the battery life was absolutely atrocious. And the game library was pretty pants at best. Although it was quite advanced at the time, wasn't it, in the sense that you could just flip it whether you're left-handed or right-handed and use it both ways, which is, you know, quite impressive, I guess. Well, I guess it is. Alright, here's a good one. First CD-based system you ever played. Now, this is interesting because obviously you could say that the PC Engine, you know, with the CD-ROM, and the Sega Mega CD with the CD-ROM are CD-based systems. But you can either pick them if they were, or you can, you know, do the other side, which was the first dedicated CD system you played, you know, like the 3DO, CDI, Saturn, PlayStation. I'm going to answer it both ways. The first CD system I ever played was the Sega Mega CD. My brother had it. I long since sold my Mega Drive, and he had an English Mega Drive, and he bought that second-hand at quite a reasonable price. It was still, you know, in its heyday, if I say its heyday, because obviously it tanked good and proper. And I did remember playing Area 51. Oh, what was it? You know, Ground Zero, Texas. I can't remember. You can correct me, but I do remember thinking this was utterly amazing, being incredibly impressed by it. Although now, if you look at the FMV, it was monkey balls. But yeah, just because of the music, and Sonic CD is still one of my favourite. Well, my favourite Sonic game of all time. But yeah, the Sega Mega CD just absolutely blew me away. I saw through how weak it was at the time. I guess it took the proper dedicated systems to make me realise, you know, what a pile of pants it was. Although to this day, I would really love one. First dedicated CD system I played was Sony PlayStation. My Japanese PlayStation, the one I imported, that cost me a shit ton of money, but I've never regretted doing it because I've easily got my value out of it. Yeah, so I guess, well, I guess it was the Sony PlayStation, the original Sony PlayStation, the original Model 1 Japanese Sony PlayStation. That was my first CD-based system. The first system you ever sold, and why? Now, I think this might actually be quite similar amongst a lot of people. The first system I ever sold was my Sega Master System, the one that I took so much pride in buying, and as I said previously, regretted in selling, but I sold it to purchase my Mega Drive. I guess it's kind of, you know, as a child growing up, it's one of those experiences that is good for you in the sense that you realise that you have to trade things off against other things to ultimately get what you want, because stuff is expensive. But yeah, first system I ever sold was my Sega Master System. A lesson in life. So here are 10 of my gaming firsts. What are 10 of yours? I'll see you later.